Move those ugly vines now, or I'll make you regret ever moving here. He scream-hit before footsteps did, slicing through the calm of a Saturday morning like glass. A woman in a designer blazer stood at the edge of the ward driveway, pointing at a simple jasmine plant as if it were a weapon. Her fury didn't match the situation. It didn't match anything human. What came next, no one expected. Not the kids, not Marissa, not the man watching from a few feet away. The HOA president demanded obedience, then she demanded silence. And when she didn't get it, she pushed, because the one thing she hated more than rule breakers was anyone who dared stand calmly against her. Before I show you the exact moment she ended a life in front of two screaming children. By the way, where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments below. Understand one thing, the quiet ones are never weak. They're simply waiting. This isn't a story about flowers. It's about a mother who never came back inside and a father who refused to let her be forgotten. He stepped forward slowly, like a man used to chaos. Ethan didn't raise his voice, didn't curse, didn't shove back. He simply placed himself between his family and the woman who treated power like oxygen, calm, controlled, dangerous in a way she couldn't read. The kids clung to Marissa's legs, wide-eyed at the escalating argument. Jasmine leaves brushed against her knees, catching sunlight with a softness that didn't belong here. Marissa smiled nervously, trying to diffuse the fire. Her voice trembled, asking for a moment, for patience, for anything other than cruelty. Victoria Hale didn't care. She never cared. Her life was measured in violations and fines. Every inch of the community was her stage, and anyone not bowing on cue became the enemy. She pointed again, sharper now. You think rules are optional? You think you're special because your husband works here? Ethan's jaw tightened, not from fear, from restraint. He had seen aggression before, the kind that turned ordinary arguments into irreversible tragedies. He recognized the breathing pattern, the rigid stance, the way rage coils before striking. In another lifetime, he would have stepped in sooner, called things out before they exploded. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was home. He hoped that mattered. Marissa reached out, palm up in peace. Let's not do this in front of the kids. We'll fix it. Victoria's reply wasn't made of words. She shoved. It wasn't a stumble or an accident. It was force, sudden, hard, with intent behind it. Marissa's shoes scraped concrete. Her arms flailed as she hit the sharp edge of the raised garden bed. A sharp crack echoed, horrifyingly out of place in the sunshine. Lily's scream tore the air apart. "No, Mommy!" Noah collapsed to his knees, sobbing into his own shaking hands. Ethan lunged, too late, catching only the aftermath. He slid. Beside his wife, his hands already knowing the damage. Warm blood, shallow breaths, eyes rolling. He'd held dying soldiers before. He'd seen skull fractures that looked exactly like this. He shouldn't have been seeing it on the woman he married. The neighbors stepped out slowly, uncertain, watching tragedy unfold from behind manicured hedges. Victoria backed away, gasping. She tripped. She blocked me. I didn't. False panic dripping from every note. Ethan ignored her. He lifted Marissa's head, applying pressure, murmuring words she might never hear. Stay with me. Breathe. I've got you. Please. Sirens wailed in the distance. Too far. Too slow. He counted each fading breath, calculating what the hospital might do, what interventions could save her. But even with perfect equipment and trained hands, the window was short and closing. Marissa's fingers twitched once, then stopped. Ethan froze. The world around him didn't. Neighbors whispered. Victoria's phone flashed as she called someone. A lawyer, probably. Paramedics finally rushed in, taking over with clinical urgency. They loaded Marissa onto the stretcher, leaving a smear of blood where her head had rested. Lily reached toward her mother's fading image, choking on sobs. Noah buried his face into Ethan's chest, trembling without sound now. Victoria approached the arriving officers first. "She fell," she cried. "He gets aggressive sometimes. Ask anyone. They all know." Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't even stand until they carried his wife away. When he rose, his face was carved from something harder than grief. He didn't yell or argue, calm again, terrifying again. He gathered the children and walked behind the stretcher, following the ambulance to the hospital. Victoria stayed behind, rehearsing her story to anyone who'd listen. She had no idea who she had just shoved into war. The ER lights were too bright for death. Ethan's shirt was soaked, and his hands still shook with the echo of trying to save her. Doctors worked. Compressions, scans, desperate measures. Nothing brought her back. Lily cried into a nurse's arms. Noah stared at the floor, silent, motionless. Ethan stood over his wife's covered body, unwilling to let the sheet fall across her face. A detective asked questions. Ethan answered without emotion. A forensic mind takes over when the heart can't. Victoria's lie spread fast. She tripped, tragic accident, whispered from one privileged mouth to another. But Ethan knew that skull fracture. He knew the force that caused it. And he knew that, if he wanted justice, he would need to use every skill he ever promised to Barry. He didn't speak when the doctor apologized. He didn't speak when they finally covered Marissa. He only muttered one thing to himself. I saw what you did. And the woman who ruled this neighborhood was about to see who he really was. He didn't let go of Marissa's hand until the nurses asked him to move so they could prepare the body for the morgue. Even then, Ethan held on a second longer, as if sheer will could change the nature of what had happened. Lily clung to his side, tiny breaths hitching in her throat. Noah's hand locked onto his shirt, like if he let go, the world would disappear. Ethan had seen death before. He had examined bodies marked by explosions, bullets, blunt force trauma. But this was different. This wasn't a stranger in a war zone. This was home. This was his wife. This was a life that should have aged into soft wrinkles and shared mornings, not ended on a driveway under the judgment of a woman obsessed with control. He guided Lily and Noah into a quiet corner of the waiting room, where chairs swallowed them and the air was too cold. They sat together, the three of them pressed into one shape, grief and fear stitched tightly. Detective Ruiz approached again. Her voice had softened, but her eyes carried questions that didn't care about feelings. Mr. Ward, Ethan, she corrected, kneeling to face him. We need to understand exactly what happened. Witnesses said your wife tripped after an argument with the HOA president. Is that your statement too? He looked at her with eyes that had watched truth get buried too many times. No, he said. One word, a simple line between justice and a cover-up. Ruiz waited, pen hovering. Victoria Hale shoved her, he continued, calm despite the tremor in his voice. The angle of impact was backward. Her head hit the stone edge at a height that doesn't make sense for a fall from standing balance. That's blunt force, not a slip. Ruiz raised a brow. That's specific. He didn't elaborate on why he knew, not yet. Before Ruiz could push further, a nurse stepped over to take the children to a family counseling room. Ethan kissed their foreheads gently, telling them he'd be right there. Lily didn't want to leave, but a tired nod allowed the nurse to guide her. When they were gone, Ruiz spoke again, quieter. Look, I'm here to get the truth, not anyone's agenda. The HOA president claims your wife got aggressive with her. Others say you were angry too. I need something solid. Ethan met her gaze. Then come with me. He led her out of the hospital, back through the lobby, past the sliding glass doors and into the late afternoon sun. His silence on the walk wasn't emptiness. It was calculation. He replayed every second, every motion, every potential angle that could become evidence. Arriving at the house, neighbors peeked from windows like gossiping statues. Victoria stood near her porch, pretending to be the wounded hero of some tragedy she curated. Her voice traveled, performative, still framing herself as the victim. I tried to help her. I begged him to be calm. You all saw. She froze when she noticed Ruiz and Ethan crossing the street. Ethan ignored her entirely. He walked to the edge of the garden bed where Marissa fell. Ruiz followed, notebook ready. Tell me, Ruiz said, how do you know this wasn't a tragic accident? Ethan crouched, tapping the stone edge with 2 fingers. The fracture point was here. The drop from Marissa's height to this stone would require momentum. Falls don't generate that unless you're running or being shoved. And you're sure? Ruiz asked. His jaw clenched. I've seen it before. Before she could respond, Ethan pointed across the street, toward a narrow pole holding a small security camera that overlooked the shared path. Ruiz turned. That's community property. Doesn't belong to your house. That camera covers the walkway, Ethan said. You'll have footage. It's HOA controlled, stored digitally. She knows it exists. she'll try to get rid of it. Victoria's voice sliced in. You have no right to accuse me. You're exploiting your wife's accident to attack me. Ruiz held up a hand. Mrs. Hale, please step back. Victoria's perfectly sculpted expression faltered. She slipped. You can ask anyone. They'll tell you. Actually, Ethan interrupted calmly, they'll tell whatever story you pushed on them while Marissa was dying. His stillness unsettled her. Rage flickered in her eyes. Moments of silence felt too loud. Ruiz stepped closer to Victoria. We're retrieving that footage. No one tamper with anything. Victoria scoffed, turning on her heel, finding an audience in the hedgeline crowd. This is harassment. I'm the one traumatized here. Ethan didn't even look her way. He walked to his front door, opened it, and paused. Detective, he said quietly, there's more. I'll show you all of it. Inside, the house felt wrong. Too quiet, too new to grief. A half-finished lunch sat on the table. A pair of children's shoes lay tipped over by the couch. Everything normal was now evidence of life interrupted. Ruiz lingered near the doorway, studying Ethan's composure. What exactly is your background? You talk like someone trained. Ethan opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed hard case. Metal edges worn, but the clasp still secure. I used to investigate what violence leaves behind, he said, and I've never been wrong about cause of death. Ruiz's breath shifted. This wasn't the handyman some neighbors dismissed. This was someone who had built truth from chaos for years, someone who didn't need permission to recognize murder. He set the case on the counter. Inside were tools, simple, compact, legal, made for documentation, not retaliation. Evidence kits, portable scanners, tools of clarity. Ruiz's eyes widened for the first time since they'd met. You said you wanted something solid, he murmured. I'll give you proof she killed my wife. Ethan wasn't making threats. He was making history. By the way, subscribe with the bell on so you don't miss what comes next. This fight isn't over, not by a long shot. Ethan snapped the case shut, lifted his gaze to Ruiz, and delivered the first promise of many. I'm going to bury every lie she tells. Ethan closed the metal case slowly, the click echoing through the quiet house like the start of something irreversible. Ruiz stood with her arms crossed, not defensive but alert, absorbing every detail of who he really was beneath the maintenance uniform. Before I let you into this, Ethan said, breathing through grief and focus intertwined, I need one thing understood. Ruiz waited. This isn't about revenge, it's about truth, and I'm not going to let her bury it. Ruiz nodded once, a promise that she was willing to see where this path led. Ethan opened the case again and laid out the contents carefully. A portable UV scanner, digital calipers, a forensic-grade camera, blank evidence bags, an audio recorder. None of it looked threatening. It wasn't meant to. These were instruments of accountability. I keep them locked away, he explained, voice low. They remind me of everything I walked away from. But tonight, they serve a purpose. Ruiz stepped closer, examining the equipment without touching. Military issue? Some, he said. Some I acquired through contract work after I left. He didn't say the word war. He didn't need to. The tools spoke for him. Ruiz's notebook remained open, pen ready. Start from the beginning. What convinced you this wasn't just a horrible accident? He inhaled, thought backward, reconstructed the moment with precision. When she fell, he said, her knees didn't buckle first. Her center of gravity shifted backward instantly. That requires force applied to the upper torso. And the injury, it wasn't a soft fall. The edge did too much damage, too directly. He paused, but not because he doubted himself, because saying it kept turning the past into reality. Ruiz's gaze tightened. You saw it yourself? He nodded. I was close enough to hear the bone crack. Ruiz didn't flinch, but her eyes softened around the edges. And your background confirms what you're claiming. I spent years identifying how people died, he replied. Victims of strikes, falls, staged scenes. The difference is etched in muscle memory. Ruiz took a slow breath, processing. All right, then let's go, step by step. They moved back outside, leaving the house heavy with absence. The sun had slipped lower, porch lights flickered on across the street, illuminating curious silhouettes behind curtained windows. Victoria's shadow paced along her porch, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp even through closed glass. Ethan crouched again beside the garden bed. Ruiz knelt too, following his line of sight. When someone trips, Ethan explained, their arms instinctively go forward. They try to catch themselves. Marissa's arms went up toward Victoria. Not down. That means she was pushed, reacting to the person in front of her. Ruiz scribbled faster. Ethan pointed to scuff marks in the soil. Her shoes dragged outward, not forward. She was resisting motion, not losing balance. Ruiz leaned in closer, eyes scanning for what he saw. And the impact? He traced the cornerstone with a gloved fingertip. The strike was here. Sharp, angled, only consistent with a backward impact from standing height with added force. Too violent for a slip. Ruiz looked back at him, something shifting in her expression, trust and a hint of fear over what it meant. "Can you document this?" she asked. "Already did." Ethan motioned toward his phone, clipped to his belt. Right after they left with Marissa, photos with timestamps. Ruiz blinked. The silent war had begun before she even arrived. "And there's the footage," Ethan repeated, nodding toward the security pole. Ruiz stood slowly. "We'll retrieve it first thing tomorrow," then paused. "Tonight, I need statements, and you need to rest. Your kids, they need me awake," he said, voice cracking for the first time since it happened. "They need me steady." Ruiz lowered her pen. "I believe you, Ethan, but Victoria has influence here. She'll use it, hard. Don't underestimate what she thinks she deserves." He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Underestimation wasn't a mistake he made anymore. Ruiz walked back to her car, phone already in hand, calling to secure the footage. Ethan remained where he was, illuminated by the porch light. A father alone, with evidence of death at his feet. Lily and Noah peeked from the front window, faces small and scared. He forced the cold from his expression and gave them a soft wave, promising safety with a motion he barely believed. Victoria stepped outside, heels clacking a slow rhythm of arrogance. "You're playing a dangerous game," she called quietly, words meant for him alone. Ethan didn't look at her. He simply stood, dusted dirt from his hands, and walked past her like she no longer mattered. That, more than anything, infuriated her. "You're unstable," she hissed. "They'll see that. They'll side with me." He stopped at his door, speaking without turning back. "They'll see the truth." He went inside before she could respond, shutting the door on her lies. The lock clicked, not out of fear, but finality. Inside, he knelt beside his children. Lily wiped tears with the back of her hand. Noah leaned into him, clutching his shirt. "I'm right here," Ethan murmured. "Nothing else matters right now." But deep inside, something dark uncurled, the part of him that had spent years studying violence, not fearing it. He rocked them gently, letting the silence breathe. Tomorrow, Ruiz would pull the footage. Tomorrow, the first crack in Victoria's facade would appear. Tonight, Ethan carried his children to bed, one in each arm, like a shield built from what remained of love. He turned off the lights, but his mind stayed awake, replaying every angle of the shove, every second that stole Marissa away. He could almost hear Victoria rewriting the story in the dark. Let her. He was rewriting the ending. Morning came too early. Ethan hadn't slept, not even for a moment. His body lay still in bed, but his mind never closed its eyes. Every time he blinked, he saw Marissa falling again. The shock in her eyes, the sound of skull against stone, Lily's scream, Noah's trembling hands. He replayed the scene like a forensic loop, analyzing every detail until grief bled into fury. He rose before sunrise and checked on the children. Lily had cried herself into exhaustion, one fist still gripping the teddy bear Marissa gave her last birthday. Noah lay curled on his side, tiny shoulders rising and falling with uneven breaths. Ethan covered them both with the soft quilt from the living room, the one Marissa always used on cold mornings. His chest ached, but purpose held him upright. There were two paths for a man in his position: collapse or build. Ethan had collapsed once, on the driveway when he realized he couldn't stop what had already happened. That left only one path now. He moved quietly through the house, gathering his equipment into a backpack, careful not to disturb the kids. Documentation first. Truth first. Emotions had to wait. As he stepped outside to inspect the garden in daylight, the world looked too calm. Blue sky, perfectly trimmed lawns. the faint smell of sprinklers. No sign of the violence that took everything from him. The spot where Marissa hit still sat cleaned by paramedics, but Ethan's camera had captured the bloodstain earlier. It was part of the record now. He crouched, adjusting angles. Shadows from the fence lay sharp across the dirt, matching the measurements he'd taken last night. The geometry of death was cold, but it didn't lie. While he worked, the neighborhood began waking up. Morning joggers slowed to stare, whispering into earbuds. A dog walker tightened grip on the leash, as if Ethan might break. He recognized that look, suspicion shaped by gossip. Victoria had already won the first round in the Court of Appearances. The HOA secretary, a paper-thin woman named Gloria, walked over clutching a clipboard. She didn't approach like someone offering condolences. She approached like someone delivering a warning. "Ethan," she said with a strained smile, "Victoria thought it would be best if you halted any modifications to common areas. There are procedures for this sort of—" He didn't bother looking up. "I'm not modifying anything." "Well, taking measurements and digging—" "This is evidence," he said, a calm so sharp it made her step back. Gloria's smile vanished entirely. "The HOA isn't responsible for personal disputes. We're all very sorry about your wife, but this is a peaceful community and—" He stood up, meeting her eyes with the exhaustion of a man whose patience had expired. "If you're not responsible," he said quietly, "then stop acting like gatekeepers to the truth." Gloria swallowed nervously. "Victoria said you were becoming aggressive." Ethan tilted his head. "Did she tell you what she did, or only what she wants you to believe?" Gloria didn't answer. She walked away faster than she'd approached. The power of a rumor always moved quicker than justice. A car engine rumbled near the entrance gate. Detective Ruiz's sedan pulled in, tires crunching gently on pavement. When she stepped out, she carried 2 sealed envelopes and a small tablet. "Morning," she said gently. Ethan nodded. "Did you get the footage?" "Yes," she replied. "And based on what I saw, we're getting a warrant to search her digital communications. There's more going on with this woman than a bad temper." Ethan's pulse beat harder. Not fear, but validation. Ruiz tapped her tablet awake. "We'll review everything at the station. For now, I need to ask, can Lily or Noah give any basic statements? Nothing graphic, just their perspective." Ethan stiffened. "Not today. They need time." Ruiz nodded with respect. "Whenever you're ready, their safety and well-being come first." From across the street, Victoria emerged once more. New mask on, tears smeared on, audience in view. She hurried toward Ruiz. "Detective, thank goodness you're here. He's been obsessing since last night, harassing neighbors, digging up property." Ruiz raised a hand to silence her. "Mrs. Hale, we'll need to speak with you later today at the precinct to get a full account of the incident." Victoria blinked, unprepared for resistance. "I already gave my statement," she insisted. "There's no need to—" "There is," Ruiz interrupted, tone flat. "We also have security footage of the event. The angle is very clear." Color drained from Victoria's face, then returned as anger. "You have no right to—" "We have the right when a woman is dead," Ruiz snapped. Victoria stepped back, searching the street for support that wouldn't come. Not when the word footage hung in the air like a loaded gun. "If you're done here," she muttered, "some of us have responsibilities." She turned away sharply, refusing to meet Ethan's eyes. Ruiz exhaled. "She's scared." "She should be," Ethan said. Ruiz glanced toward the house. "Let me talk to the kids, then we'll take your full statement formally." Inside, Lily sat on the couch hugging her bear. Noah looked smaller than he ever had, legs tucked under him. Ruiz squatted to their level, careful, warm. "I'm Detective Carla," she said softly. "I just want to know how you're feeling today." Lily didn't speak at first, just leaned into Ethan's side. But after a beat, her tiny voice emerged. She pushed Mommy. 4 words. Enough to crack a lie in half. Ruiz nodded gently. "Thank you. That helps." She didn't press more. Back outside, Ruiz gathered her things. The street felt different now. Not just quiet, but waiting. "We'll move fast," she promised. "But tread carefully. Victoria may act desperate. People like her. They panic when control slips." Ethan stared toward the Hale house, thinking of every threat disguised as HOA policy. "They can call me unstable," he whispered. They can ignore the truth, but they won't erase her? Ruiz tightened her grip on her folder. We won't let them. As she left, Ethan locked the door behind her and allowed silence to finally stretch out again. His children still needed him. His wife needed justice, and evidence, cold and unbending, was already turning. Tomorrow would not be kinder, but it would be closer to the truth. Detective Ruiz's car disappeared down the street, leaving the neighborhood suspended in a silence that didn't feel peaceful. It felt watchful. Ethan stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to the stillness. Behind him, the house had become a fragile sanctuary. Outside, the battlefield waited. He returned to the living room, where Lily sat cross-legged on the couch, tracing circles on her teddy bear's ear. Noah lay on the floor with his blanket, eyes half open but not resting. Trauma didn't sleep. It hid behind blinking lashes. Ethan crouched beside them. I'm staying right here, he said softly. Everything is going to be okay. A promise he would make real, even if he had to reshape the world to do it. He brewed coffee he wouldn't drink, just to fill the air with something warm. He watched the children pick at breakfast they didn't want. He answered texts from family with single-word updates. Here, together, trying. He kept the day moving because if it stopped, grief would swallow them whole. By mid-morning, there was a knock. 3 quick taps. Calm, polite. Not the frantic rattle of bad news. Ethan checked the peephole. Ruiz. He opened the door and stepped aside. Come in. Ruiz entered carrying a slim laptop case and a thick folder. Her expression told him everything before she spoke. We pulled the footage from the HOA system, she said, setting up at the dining table. Multiple angles, all synced. Ethan's pulse sharpened. Show me. Ruiz opened the laptop and tapped a key. The screen blinked, then played the moment, slowed down, silent, horrifying. Victoria's shove wasn't chaotic or accidental. It was deliberate, clean, if cruelty could ever be clean. Ruiz froze the frame just as Marissa's body tipped back. Proved intent, Ruiz murmured. She advanced toward your wife first. Your wife had no forward momentum. You weren't even close enough to touch either of them at this second. They sat in silence, staring at the paused betrayal. If a prosecutor sees this, Ethan asked, voice gravel thin, what happens? It becomes murder, Ruiz said. Not negligence, not an accident, murder. Ethan nodded once, a small but seismic acknowledgement. Proof had weight, and here it was crushing. Ruiz closed the laptop slowly. We need your statement officially recorded, and I'll be interviewing Victoria today. She'll fight. She might even retaliate. She already started, Ethan said. Ruiz didn't disagree. Just then, a car outside slowed near the Hale house. A sleek black sedan Ethan had never seen before. A man stepped out wearing a suit that cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. Lawyer. Victoria opened her door before he even knocked. She ushered him inside with the confidence of someone who believed she could buy her own version of the truth. Ruiz noticed too. She's escalating fast, which means she's afraid, Ethan replied. Ruiz packed her things. We'll keep you informed every step, she paused, lowering her voice. Protect the kids, she's angry. And angry people make reckless choices. Ethan nodded. We'll be ready. Ruiz gave a final reassuring look, then left. Ethan secured the door, locking each bolt like closing pages on innocence. Lily peeked from behind the couch. Is Mommy coming home? Ethan sat beside her and pulled her close. Mommy isn't coming home, he said gently, but I'm going to make sure no one forgets her. Tears built, spilling silently. He held both children against his chest, their heartbeats pressed together in a knot grief couldn't undo. Later, once they were settled with a movie in the bedroom, Ethan turned to his equipment again. He laid everything out on the kitchen counter, scanner, calipers, camera, ready to process any new evidence before it disappeared. The door rattled, not a knock, a shove, someone testing the lock. Ethan stepped silently into the foyer, tension coiled tight. The handle rattled again. Then a voice, familiar, honey-poisoned. Ethan, open the door, Victoria called, tone feigned sweet. We need to talk about how you're handling this situation. He said nothing. Silence was his shield. Detective Ruiz is manipulating you, Victoria continued through the door. She wants to pin this on someone, You're her easiest target. No reaction. Victoria's voice cracked, the mask slipping. You're unstable. You always were. People are talking. If you keep this up, they'll take your children away. He opened the door. Just the chain at first, metal stretched tight. He faced her with a calmness that made her flinch. The lawyer stood behind her on the walkway, cautious, calculating. You need to leave, Ethan said, steady and low. You don't come near my family again. Victoria tried to sneer, but her fear trembled beneath the smile. You're threatening me now? No, Ethan said. I'm warning you. He closed the door slowly, without breaking eye contact. The chain slid back into its latch with a satisfying finality. From inside, he heard Victoria mutter to her lawyer. Words like unfit and custody floated through the door. A strategy forming. Ugly, desperate, cruel. She wasn't trying to survive the truth anymore. She was trying to destroy the witness. Ethan returned to the twins, kissed their heads, and whispered, I've got you. No matter what she does, I've got you. He knew where this was heading. Cases like this didn't stop at evidence. They turned brutal. They turned personal. He wasn't afraid. He was furious. And fury, when guided by truth, was unstoppable. If you're here with us, subscribe and stay close. This fight is just beginning. Ethan turned off the hall light, letting darkness show him what needed protection. The rest of the day crept by in uneasy fragments. Ethan tried to give Lily and Noah something resembling normal. Coloring books, cartoons, small snacks. But every few minutes, one of them turned to check that he was still there. Safety was no longer a feeling. It was a person. It was him. After he tucked them in for an afternoon nap, he sat at the dining table with his equipment laid out like a ritual. Item by item, he prepared documentation reports for Ruiz. Photos printed and labeled, measurements recorded, copies saved to a drive locked in the safe he kept under the stairs. He wasn't just fighting for truth, he was building a fortress out of it. He paused at a photo of Marissa smiling beneath the jasmine vines. Her laughter, frozen in sunlight, now made the world feel brittle. Every memory had become evidence of what was stolen. A knock sounded, not a pounding threat this time, a single, hesitant tap. Ethan eased toward the door and checked the peephole. It was Mr. Bennett, the elderly man 2 houses down. Cane in one hand, a folded paper in the other. Ethan opened the door cautiously. I'm sorry to show up unannounced, Bennett said, voice low. May I come in for a moment? Ethan weighed the risk, then nodded and stepped aside. Bennett moved slowly inside, gaze full of sorrow. I heard about Marissa. She was a good woman, always kind. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Ethan swallowed. Thank you. Bennett handed him the paper, a printed email chain, HOA records, unedited, unfiltered. I kept these, Bennett whispered, because I knew she'd go too far one day. Victoria, her language in the emails was venom disguised as policy. Threats, fines, personal insults, lines like, I'll make them wish they never moved here. And worse, people like them can't be trusted with this community's image. Why give me this? Ethan asked quietly. Bennett lowered his eyes. Because I've watched what she does to anyone who stands up to her. And I should have spoken sooner. His breath trembled, guilt settling heavy. Maybe if I had, your wife would still be here. Ethan shook his head. This isn't on you. Bennett looked toward the window. Detective Ruiz parked by the gate earlier. She'll fight for you. But you need to know, Victoria's spreading a different story already. Of course she was. She's telling people you have a temper, that you were unstable long before this, that your wife flinched around you. Bennett said it with disgust, as if repeating poison burned him. And some believe her. She's good at making lies sound like truth. Ethan clenched his fist around the papers. Lies don't change evidence. No, Bennett agreed, but they change minds, and minds can influence justice. Ethan didn't want to admit it, but he knew the battlefield well enough to understand. Facts win trials, but narratives win crowds. And Victoria knew how to control a crowd. Bennett took a small envelope from his coat pocket. I also have something else. Years ago, we installed a private camera outside my doorway after a break-in scare. It faces your driveway. It has audio. Ethan's heart kicked. Audio? He repeated. Bennett nodded. The HOA banned such cameras later, but I never removed it, and Victoria never found it. Ethan felt a spark of hope flicker to life. Audio could reveal the tone, the threat, the escalation. It could expose Victoria's intent in her own voice. "Would you be willing to hand it over to Detective Ruiz?" Ethan asked. "That's why I'm here," Bennett said, relief loosening his shoulders. "It's yours to use. Just, please be careful." Ethan placed a hand on the man's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude grounded in necessity. "Thank you. This matters more than you know." Bennett nodded slowly and left, cane tapping a soft rhythm down the walkway. His presence lingered like the first hint of a turning tide. Ethan shut the door, leaning back against it as the weight of the day shifted. Evidence wasn't just building, it was multiplying. He returned to the table and slid Bennett's papers under the stack. Every piece was another brick in the truth he would place in front of the world. Footsteps thudded on the stairs, Lily holding her blanket, eyes sleepy. Noah followed behind her, clutching his small toy car. "Daddy," Lily whispered, "is the mean lady gone?" "She will be," Ethan said, scooping her into his arms. "She doesn't get to hurt us again." Noah reached up, and Ethan lifted him too. Both children fit against his chest, one on each side, like before. The shape that made them a family still existed, just missing a heartbeat they couldn't replace. He carried them back to the couch where they lay curled across his lap. He turned on a nature documentary, something calm and gentle, letting their breathing steady against him. The door rattled again, not a knock this time, paper sliding through the bottom. A letter. Ethan set the kids gently beside him and opened the envelope quietly, scanning the text. A notice from the HOA. Formal complaint filed against Ethan Ward for harassment, property interference, and aggressive behavior. Hearing scheduled, attendance mandatory. She was already trying to turn the community against him. Legally, strategically, ruthlessly. Ethan folded the letter carefully, exhaling through frustration. She wanted fear. She wanted him unstable. She wanted him too busy defending himself to pursue her. Too late. He looked at Lily and Noah, sleeping now, trusting him without hesitation. That trust deserved a war. He moved to the window and peeked outside. Victoria stood on her porch again, pretending not to watch his house while whispering into her phone. Her stance was jittery, power slipping through her fingers. Ethan whispered to himself, "Good. Be scared." Evidence was coming for her. Truth was coming for her. And a father who'd already lost everything had nothing left to fear. Tomorrow, he would deliver proof no rumor could erase. He sat beside his children and let determination settle into the deepest parts of him. There was no turning back. Night offered no rest. The house felt too quiet, too alert, like the walls themselves understood danger now lived across the street. Ethan sat in the dim living room, children asleep on the fold-out couch where he wanted them close. He kept one hand resting lightly over them, as if touch alone could shield them from the world outside. When the clock struck midnight, headlights crawled through the blinds. A car rolled slowly down the street, stopping in front of his house. The same black sedan. Victoria's lawyer. He stepped out, glanced around, then slipped a thick envelope into Victoria's mailbox before disappearing into the night. She was preparing her defense and her attack. Ethan had anticipated this escalation. Arrogance doesn't retreat gracefully. He leaned back, breathing steady. War demanded patience. He would meet every move with one of his own. Quieter, smarter, inevitable. Morning brought sharp sunlight and a knock that didn't wait for permission. Ruiz. Ethan opened the door, still wearing yesterday's exhaustion. "We've got a problem," she said, stepping inside without ceremony. "Victoria?" he guessed. Ruiz shook her head. "The HOA board. They're backing her. They're claiming you've been spiraling for months. Anonymous statements, character attacks. It's coordinated." Of course it was. "Can they influence the case?" Ethan asked. "Not the case," Ruiz replied, "but the community. And community bias can spill into juries if we're not careful." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You saw the footage. The truth is obvious." Ruiz lowered her voice. "Truth doesn't win popularity contests. She's playing this on two fronts, legal and social. That makes her dangerous." Ethan crossed his arms, grappling with the reality he'd seen too many times overseas. The enemy smiling while poisoning the well. "What's next?" he asked. Ruiz laid a USB drive on the table. "We mirror this footage off-site. Chain of custody stays intact, but we safeguard copies. If she tries to destroy the original system, the evidence survives." Ethan nodded. "Good." Ruiz exhaled, then set the second item on the table, Bennett's audio drive. "We listened," she said. "It captured everything clearly, the insults, the shove, the moment she realized she'd gone too far." A pause. "It's admissible if Bennett testifies he installed the camera before the ban." Hope had a sound now, Victoria's voice sealing her own fate. Ruiz continued. "For now, I need you at the station for a full recorded interview. After that, the district attorney will review the evidence." Ethan looked toward the hall where Lily and Noah were still sleeping. Leaving them, even for a short time, felt wrong, like tearing off a bandage that barely clung. "I'll watch them," said a new voice. Mrs. Bennett appeared at the doorway to the living room, her wrinkled hands folded protectively over her heart. "Bennett called me, said you might need help." Her kindness struck Ethan deeper than any cruelty could. "I won't be long," he assured her. "You take all the time you need," she replied. "They're safe with me." The police station was colder than the hospital, emotionless and sterile. Ruiz guided Ethan into a small interview room and set her recorder on the table. "Just tell me what you saw," she said gently. He relived every second again, the argument, the shove, the sound of his world breaking. His voice didn't waver, but his throat tightened when he spoke Marissa's name. Ruiz listened with professional focus, but human eyes. When he finished, she turned off the recorder. "That was strong," she said. "The DA will take this seriously." Ethan nodded, trying not to let relief soften his guard. As they stepped into the hallway, Ruiz's phone rang. She answered, brow furrowing. "Victoria is refusing to come in voluntarily," she said after hanging up. "Her lawyer's filing motions to delay any questioning, claims you're unstable, and your statement should be evaluated against mental health records." Ethan didn't blink. "I don't have any." "She knows that," Ruiz replied. "She's trying to create a narrative, not a truth." Ruiz escorted him back home, scanning the street before walking him inside. Mrs. Bennett had made sandwiches the children barely touched. Lily's eyes searched Ethan's face the moment he returned. "You're okay?" she whispered. "I'm right here," he promised again, a promise he would keep until his last breath. Later, as Ruiz prepared to leave, she asked, "Do you have protection? Locks are good, but sometimes that's not enough." Ethan shook his head slightly. "I have training. I hope I won't need more." Ruiz hesitated. "Just stay aware." She left with urgency in her stride. Victoria's house loomed across the street, curtains pulled tight, shadows moving inside. Ethan closed the blinds and sat with his children in the living room, letting cartoons fill the silence again. Lily eventually leaned against his shoulder, whispering, "I miss Mommy's songs." "I know, sweetheart." He stroked her hair gently. "We'll remember them together." Hours passed. Safety was measured second by second. Then came a new sound, a soft clink against the front window. Ethan stiffened. He approached carefully and peeked through a sliver in the curtain. A rock lay on the porch, small, wrapped in a scrap of paper. He opened the door only far enough to grab it. Inside, handwritten words scrawled in rush strokes. "Stop, or you lose everything." He didn't show the children. He folded the paper and slid it into an evidence bag, sealing it with calm that masked the fire rising in his chest. Victoria had crossed a new line. Threats against his family. He looked toward her house one more time. Her fear would not intimidate him. It would expose her. He sat back down between his kids, eyes locked on the door. War wasn't looming anymore. It was here. Night swallowed the house again, deeper this time. Ethan sat upright on the living room floor, the kids asleep close enough that he could hear each tiny breath. The threat note lay sealed in an evidence bag on the coffee table. Even in the dark, those jagged words glared like a promise of more cruelty to come. He stayed awake until exhaustion sanded his eyelids raw. When dawn finally bled into the blinds, Ethan rose quietly. He needed clarity. He needed control. The sun didn't erase danger, but it made him feel less alone while facing it. He brewed coffee and watched steam curl upward, the only movement he trusted. Lily and Noah wandered into the kitchen together, both clingy, both fragile. He gathered them up in his arms, hugging them long enough that they relaxed, heads resting against his shoulders. They didn't ask for safety. They simply assumed he would create it. He had to. After breakfast, Ruiz arrived again, earlier than expected. Her eyes held urgency. "We're escalating," she said, stepping inside. "Charges are being prepared, but there's something you need to know." Ethan braced. Victoria's lawyer filed a motion claiming you're unfit to parent due to stress-induced behavior. They demanded a wellness check. Ethan froze. "She's trying to take my kids." Ruiz nodded grimly. "They're weaponizing the system against you. It's a tactic. Drag you into a custody battle to distract you from the murder charge." Lily heard the word kids and hugged Ethan's leg tighter. Noah mirrored her, clutching his shirt. He crouched to their level. "Go play in the other room, okay? I'll be right here." They obeyed, but Noah kept looking back until the door closed behind them. Ruiz lowered her voice. "We're not letting her get away with this. I've documented the threat you received last night. It shows intent to intimidate a witness." Ethan's jaw set. "I want every step recorded. I don't want even a crack she can escape through." "You're doing everything right," Ruiz assured him, "and you're not alone in this anymore." For the first time since Marissa's death, Ethan felt the faint beginnings of protection, not just from his skills, but from someone willing to stand beside him. Ruiz left to make her filings. Ethan packed lunches for the kids, even though none of them were hungry. He turned on the TV to distract them from anxiety that kept crawling into the room uninvited. Minutes later, the doorbell rang. He expected Ruiz again. Instead, two strangers stood on the porch, a woman in a business suit, a man holding a clipboard, wearing a badge he recognized, Child Protective Services. Ethan kept the chain locked. "We're here for a welfare check," the woman said, tone falsely sympathetic. "We received reports of unstable behavior and potential domestic safety concerns." His stomach twisted. Victoria didn't waste time. "My children are safe," he said, voice steady. "You're not entering without a warrant." The man leaned in. "Sir, refusing entry only complicates things. We're here to ensure their well-being, not interfere." "You're already interfering," Ethan replied. "I'll bring them to the door. You talk to them here." A beat of silence followed. Then the woman nodded. "That will suffice for now?" Ethan walked to the living room, calming his breathing before facing Lily and Noah. He knelt and tucked hair behind Lily's ear. "Two people want to ask if you're okay," he said gently. "Just tell them the truth. I'm right here." Lily nodded bravely. Noah clutched his toy car like a shield. Ethan led them to the doorway, but kept the chain latched. Lily spoke first, small voice, but steady. "We're okay. Daddy takes care of us." The woman tried to peer inside. Ethan shifted slightly, blocking the view. "And do you feel safe here?" the man asked. Noah pressed closer to Ethan's leg. "I want Mommy," he whispered. "Daddy's here." The workers exchanged looks that Ethan couldn't read. After several questions, routine, invasive, pointless, they stepped back. "We'll file our report," the woman said. "You may receive a follow-up appointment." They left without apology, just like they had arrived, cold, clinical, leaving damage behind. Ethan shut the door and sank to his knees. Lily placed a hand on his shoulder. "Why are they mean?" she asked. "They're confused," he said. "They don't know the truth yet." But they would. That afternoon, Ruiz returned with news that shifted the air. "The district attorney is authorizing a case," she said, eyes fierce. "We'll be serving a formal summons to Victoria tomorrow." Ethan exhaled, long and hollow. A milestone, but not the finish line. Ruiz continued, "I also documented the CPS visit. It helps show retaliation. Judges don't like manipulation of the system." Outside, a car door slammed. Victoria and her lawyer emerged again, crossing the street with entitled confidence. She called out loudly, loud enough for neighbors to accidentally overhear. "Your lies are going to cost you everything. Just wait until the hearing." Ruiz stepped forward between them and Ethan. "Mrs. Hale, you're advised not to contact this family further." Victoria folded her arms. "I'm protecting children from a violent man." Ethan's calm was colder than fear. "I've never laid a hand on anyone in this house." Victoria scoffed. "Your wife flinched around you. People saw—" Ruiz cut in sharply. "We have audio of you antagonizing her, and video of the attack. I would advise you to consider silence before you bury yourself worse." a flicker, panic beneath Victoria's bravado. Her lawyer tugged her back. "We're leaving," he ordered, and steered her toward home. Ethan inhaled, steadying the fire in his chest. Ruiz touched his shoulder lightly. "You're doing everything you need to. Keep holding on. The truth is climbing." He nodded. Then Ruiz turned to leave, and Ethan looked at his children through the window, trusting, innocent, and waiting for a world that made sense again. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about protecting them from a monster who wore pearls and authority. Before the moment slid away, Ethan whispered, mostly to himself, "Everybody watching, stay close. We're about to take the fight to her. Don't forget to subscribe. This storm is only getting louder." He closed the door behind him, sealing another day of survival. The evening fell harsh and heavy over the neighborhood, flooding the streets with that eerie stillness that comes before storms. Ethan double-checked every lock, every curtain, every inch of the perimeter. The children were asleep again, worn out by fear they didn't understand. He kissed their foreheads and whispered strength into their dreams. Tonight, he wouldn't sit and wait. Tonight, he would prepare. He retrieved his equipment case, placing it on the coffee table with reverence. Each tool represented a truth Victoria could never twist. He reviewed all files with procedural precision, timestamps, metadata, digital signatures, every piece ironclad, every detail traceable. He wasn't just fighting for justice. He was building a weapon made of facts. Before dawn, Ruiz returned with urgency. Her car idled outside, headlights slicing through the last shadow of night. "We're serving Victoria the summons first thing," she said as Ethan stepped out. "And I want you there when we do. It matters for the record." Ethan nodded once. "The kids? I've arranged a patrol officer to stay outside your house while we're gone," Ruiz assured him. "No one gets near them." That sentence felt like air in his lungs. He left instructions for Mrs. Bennett, who stayed with Lily and Noah. Small kindnesses were becoming armor. As they drove toward the community center, the designated location for the HOA disciplinary hearings, Ruiz briefed him. "She's going to show up angry, expect personal attacks, stay silent, let evidence speak." Ethan stared ahead. "She won't see me lose control." Ruiz smirked lightly. "I know." The community center doors opened into a wide room, lined with folding chairs and polished wood floors. Morning light glared through tall windows, too bright to hide anything. The entire HOA board sat at a table dressed like they were presiding over peace, not a crime. Victoria arrived a few minutes later, pearl necklace, expensive perfume, trembling fury. Her lawyer flanked her side, chin lifted in smug superiority. Ruiz stepped forward and presented the summons. "Victoria Hale, you are formally notified of pending charges of second-degree murder, pending escalation upon review." The room froze. Victoria's hand snapped toward the paper, but didn't touch it. "You must be joking. Murder? That woman fell, tripped. Everyone knows that." Ruiz's voice hardened. "We have footage and audio. The state has probable cause." Gasps whispered through the room. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. Theirs was a world built on curated perfection, never expecting this stain to land at their table. Victoria turned on Ethan instantly. "You did this? You want people to pity you? You're sick." Ethan didn't flinch. "Marissa died because you shoved her, and Lily saw everything." Mentioning her daughter's name cracked something behind his ribs, but the truth was heavier than pain. Victoria's lawyer interjected. "My client will not answer questions, and this hearing is unrelated to any ongoing investigation." Ruiz cut him off. "Actually, this hearing is important context. It demonstrates motive and aggression." The board chair, a nervous man with a comb-over, raised both hands. This is inappropriate. We're here to discuss property violations and community behavior, not criminal." "Those are connected," Ruiz replied. "Her behavior resulted in a death." Victoria slammed both palms on the table. "She got in my way. She was careless." Ruiz stared at her, cold, clinical. "Careless as dropping a plate. What you did was violence." The lawyer tugged her back, whispering something sharp. Ethan put photos on the table. Body diagram, wound angle, stone edge collision. He didn't raise his voice. His evidence did the screaming. Board members stared, horrified by the reality they had ignored. Victoria's control fractured. She turned to the circle of neighbors gathered in the back, faces pale. "He's twisting things," she shouted. "He's obsessed. He couldn't even keep her safe." Her cruelty landed like a blade, but Ethan wasn't cut. Ruiz stepped forward, handing the board chair a USB drive. "This contains video of the incident. You will all watch it with the investigator after this meeting." Victoria's breath hitched, just a fraction, but Ethan noticed. Fear finally had a target. Ruiz continued. "For now, Mrs. Hale, your role as HOA president is suspended pending legal review. You are to have no contact with the Ward family." Silence slammed the room. Victoria's voice dropped to something venomous. "You think suspension matters? This community trusts me. They always have." Ruiz tilted her head. "Watch the footage, then tell me if anyone still trusts you." Victoria's facade splintered, not shattered, but cracking fast. Her lawyer muttered, "This hearing is over," and ushered her toward the exit. She stumbled once, too angry to walk straight. Ruiz and Ethan stepped outside. The air tasted different. Justice-flavored, sharp, electric. "How long until they act?" Ethan asked. "A warrant for arrest is next," Ruiz replied. "But the DA wants every shred airtight. We're close." Close. Close was hope. As they returned home, the patrol remained vigilant. Ethan hugged his children the moment he entered the door. Lily asked if the mean lady was gone. He didn't lie. Soon. He spent the afternoon reviewing documents, strengthening the timeline, ensuring not a single second could slip through legal cracks. Then, a phone call. Detective Ruiz. Her voice held triumph. "We have enough. The warrant is finalized. Tomorrow morning, she's being arrested." Ethan closed his eyes. Relief didn't rush. It seeped, slow and cautious. "Thank you," he breathed. "There's one more thing," Ruiz added. "Victoria tried to access the security system an hour ago. Attempted deletion. Our tech team intercepted it. That counts as evidence tampering and motive enhancement. Capital charges territory." Ethan's heart didn't race. It steadied. He looked at his children sleeping against each other on the couch, innocence wrapped in blankets. "We're almost there," he whispered. He watched them breathe. 2 reasons a monster would face consequences. Victoria thought intimidation would break him. Instead, it buried her. Tomorrow, she would be the one behind locked doors. Ethan would be the one holding the keys. Ethan didn't sleep the night before the arrest. He lay on the fold-out couch with Lily tucked under one arm and Noah on the other. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Marissa smiling in the sun, and then falling. Justice tomorrow didn't mean peace tonight. It meant anticipation, sharp and relentless. He rose before sunrise and wrapped the kids' blankets tighter, letting them sleep while he prepared for what was coming. Coffee brewed, toaster hummed, tiny plates with little fruit slices arranged like they used to when Marissa would jokingly call breakfast art time. It hurt to set the table without her. It hurt worse to imagine their future without justice. At 7:27 a.m., a knock rattled the door. Ruiz, right on schedule. Her expression was carved with determination. "It's time," she said. Ethan nodded. "Kids come with us?" "They should," Ruiz answered. "They deserve to see that monsters get taken away, not worshipped." He woke Lily and Noah gently, told them they'd be going out for a bit, but everything would be okay. Lily rubbed her eyes, confused but trusting him completely. Noah clutched his toy car, the same one he held the day Marissa died. Outside, a squad car idled by the curb. 2 uniformed officers stood ready. Ruiz led them across the street to the Hale house. The morning air smelled of cut grass. Normal, cruelly normal. But Ethan's pulse hammered. This was the moment the world would shift. Victoria stepped onto her porch, already dressed like she was attending a charity brunch. Pearls, blazer, polished shoes. She opened her mouth to deliver another speech, but handcuffs silenced her faster than any argument could. "What is the meaning of this?" she screamed, twisting against the cuffs. "I'm the president of this association. You can't—" "The state can," Ruiz said flatly. "Victoria Hale, you are under arrest for second-degree murder, evidence tampering, and aggravated intimidation of a witness." Neighbors emerged from doorways, gathering like spectators at a parade. This time, the masks of sympathy were gone. They stared, shocked, curious, secretly relieved to see someone else under the microscope for once. Victoria's gaze snapped to Ethan. "You did this! You put those cameras in! You manipulated—" "No," Ethan said quietly, holding Lily's hand. "You pushed her. That's all it ever was." Her bravado cracked. "She tripped. I barely touched her." Noah hid behind Ethan's leg, eyes flickering between fear and recognition. "She hurt Mommy," he whispered, voice tiny but steel true. Victoria's face drained. The truth spoken by a child carried more weight than all her lies. Her lawyer stormed toward them, legal threats spilling from his mouth. Ruiz ignored him. "Take her," she ordered. Officers guided Victoria toward the patrol car. Her heels scraped the pavement as she resisted like a spoiled queen being dragged from her throne. "You people will regret this," she screeched. "When the board hears this, they'll—" "The board doesn't run the justice system," Ruiz replied. The car door shut, her shouts muffled to a pitiful echo. As the police vehicle drove off, the crowd remained frozen, quiet, processing. The woman they once feared or obeyed was gone. Lily squeezed Ethan's hand. "Daddy, is the bad lady going to jail forever?" He knelt down, meeting her wide, hopeful eyes. "The judge will decide, but she'll never hurt us again." Lily nodded, believing him with the complete certainty only children can carry. One neighbor, Gloria, the secretary, stepped forward hesitantly. "Ethan, I'm sorry. We should have listened. We saw her rage before, but we wanted peace, not trouble." He looked at her for a long, heavy moment. "Peace isn't silence," he said. "It's justice." Gloria lowered her gaze. Ruiz leaned close. "You okay?" "Not yet," he admitted. "But I will be." She rested a hand on his shoulder. "Next phase is the arraignment, then trial. It won't be easy. She'll fight with everything she has left." "I don't care how long it takes," Ethan replied. "She took my wife from me. I'm not stopping until she answers for every second of it." Ruiz nodded with respect. "The DA wants your kids' short statements on record, not today, not tomorrow, when they're ready." He exhaled, grateful for that humanity. As they returned home, Ethan's legs trembled, not from weakness, but from the release of pressure he'd carried alone since that first scream on the driveway. Inside, he served breakfast, sat the children at the table, and listened to them giggle at spilled juice like giggling was still a language they could speak. Normalcy, unfamiliar and tentative, peeked in for the first time. But the war wasn't finished. Evidence still had to speak in court. Lies still needed dismantling. Victoria would cling to every thread of influence she had left. After breakfast, Ethan packed away the forensic tools he'd been living beside, not because he was letting go, but because everything was now entering the legal arena. His role was shifting, from silent investigator to grieving husband waiting for the gavel. He tucked Lily and Noah into the couch with their blankets for a movie. Their laughter filled the room in small bursts, warming walls that had known too much fear. Ethan stepped into the hallway, phone buzzing in his hand. Ruiz again. "She's in holding," Ruiz confirmed. "Judge will see her this afternoon. They'll deny bail. I'm confident. The tampering charge alone makes her a flight risk." Ethan nodded. "Thank you." "You earned this," Ruiz said. "Your calm is what saved this case. If you'd lashed out, she would have walked." He closed his eyes, grateful that restraint had been stronger than rage when it mattered most. "Prepare," Ruiz added. "Once trial starts, everything gets louder." "I'm ready," Ethan said. Not because he wanted vengeance, because his children deserved a future without nightmares living across the street. He stepped back into the living room and sat beside them, letting their laughter stitch tiny repairs into his heart. Victoria Hale was behind bars. The truth was moving forward, and Marissa was finally one step closer to justice. As the sun began its slow descent, the day felt different. Lighter in the air, but heavier in truth. Ethan tried to cling to the small moments of normalcy. Lily and Noah curled up watching cartoons, the faint scent of toast still floating from breakfast, their teddy bear fortress slowly forming on the sofa. But beneath that fragile calm, the enormity of what had just happened pulsed steadily. Victoria Hale, the woman who ended their family, now sat behind cold bars. It didn't fix the hole left behind, but it was the first real step toward justice. Ethan watched his children laugh quietly at something on screen. It amazed him, their ability to breathe joy back into a world that had tried to suffocate it. They didn't understand court proceedings or legal terms. They only knew that the dangerous lady wouldn't be coming near them again. He stepped into the kitchen to answer a call from Ruiz. Her voice carried a measured intensity. "Judge denied bail," she said. "She's being held until trial. The DA is pushing for an expedited schedule given the severity and the attempted evidence tampering." Ethan let the news settle. "She doesn't get to walk free again." "Not if we do this right," Ruiz replied. "I'm warning you, the defense will try to twist everything. They'll claim she was provoked. They'll drag you into the story as their villain, if that's what keeps her off death row." "I don't care what they claim," Ethan said. "Truth is on our side." Ruiz exhaled. "I'll call when we have the pre-trial date. Try to rest tonight. Celebrate the small victory." He hung up and stood there in the quiet kitchen, trying to absorb her advice. Rest felt like a language he no longer spoke. But celebrating, that he could try, for the kids. He plated dinner, simple pasta, the first real meal they'd eaten since yesterday. Lily twirled noodles around her fork. Noah spilled sauce onto his shirt. Ethan helped wipe the mess, smiling for the first time without forcing it. After dinner, he walked them upstairs. Bedtime came with fears, Lily wanting to make sure every door was locked, Noah clutching his toy car beneath his pillow. Ethan reassured them again and again, his voice soft and steady. Once they slept, he returned downstairs. The house felt too large without Marissa, too empty. He sat in the living room next to the evidence case, now closed, now still. The storm no longer raged inside these walls. It had moved into the justice system, but a new kind of fear crept in, the waiting. He leaned back, eyes closed, forcing deep breaths. The silent hours stretched long, and memories clawed their way to the surface. Their wedding day, the way Marissa laughed until she snorted, her warm hand smoothing curls out of Lily's hair. He blinked hard, refusing to let tears drift too far. Grief could steal him back into darkness if he looked at it too closely. The doorbell shattered the quiet. Ethan tensed. His heart slammed once, a warning. He checked the peephole. 2 officers, badges visible, neutral expressions. He opened the door, dread thickening. "Mr. Ward," one officer said, "we need you to come with us to the station, now." Ethan's breath caught. "Why? Did something happen?" "It's about the investigation." Ruiz had told him nothing about this. He scanned the officers' faces, professional, unreadable. "My kids are asleep," he said. "I'm not leaving them alone." "We'll have someone stationed here the entire time," the officer replied. "This is mandatory." Something was wrong. Ruiz should have called him first. She would have called. The timing, late evening, sudden, did not fit the rhythm of normal procedure, but refusing could make things worse, could give Victoria's defense ammo. He checked on Lily and Noah, kissed their cheeks gently, and whispered, "I'll be right back." Mrs. Bennett once again stepped in to stay with them. She'd been preparing for this possibility since yesterday. Ethan entered the back seat of the cruiser, the doors locked. The drive was silent. Every streetlight flickered across the window, like a metronome ticking down to revelation. When they arrived, the station felt different than earlier. More eyes, more tension. The officers guided him down the hall, past interrogation rooms and offices he had walked through hours before. Then, Ruiz stood waiting. Relief hit him fast, until he saw her expression. Anger, controlled, focused on someone behind him. "Uncuff him," Ruiz ordered sharply. Uncuff him? Ethan hadn't even realized his wrists were bound. Cold metal fell away. Ruiz stepped close. "Victoria's lawyers are pulling a stunt. They filed an emergency motion claiming you obstructed the HOA investigation and may have staged evidence around the crime scene." She lifted a folder, crisp, official. "They want you indicted for tampering." Ethan felt heat surge under his skin. "They're desperate." "Yes," Ruiz said, "but desperation can still cause damage if we aren't careful." "What do they have?" he asked, jaw hardening. "Nothing that holds," Ruiz replied, "but they're using timing to stall, to muddy perception before trial." She passed him a bottle of water. "You handled today perfectly. Don't let this push you into reacting emotionally. They want that. Ethan nodded slowly. Let them throw their lies. We'll bury them with truth. Ruiz studied his face and, for the first time, allowed herself a small smile. That's exactly why we're going to win. Back home, the kids were still asleep. Ethan stood in their doorway, watching them breathe. Innocence, living proof that he had a purpose beyond rage. He closed the door softly. Tomorrow would be harder. Tomorrow the courtroom would try to test his composure. But tomorrow was also one day closer to a verdict that would redefine everything. He whispered into the dim hallway, voice steady like a vow. Marissa, I'm still right here, and I'm not done. The house settled into silence, but it wasn't the silence of fear anymore. It was anticipation, the kind that comes right before justice takes the stand. The courthouse was colder than any battlefield Ethan had stood on. Polished marble floors reflected the unease of every step, while the tall ceilings amplified whispers into echoes that felt like judgment. Lily sat beside him, tiny hands fidgeting with the ribbon on her dress. Noah's head rested on his lap. Toy car clutched tight in his sleeping fingers. They didn't belong in a place like this, but the truth belonged everywhere Victoria had tried to erase it. Detective Ruiz stood in front of them, legal folders pressed against her chest. Whatever happens today, she said quietly, you did everything right. Ethan nodded. He didn't need validation. He needed closure. But Ruiz's steadiness anchored him through the rising tide of emotion. Opposite them, Victoria's defense team whispered in tight huddles, casting glares that slid off Ethan's calm like water off steel. Victoria herself sat cuffed to a chair beside her lawyers, hair perfectly styled, but eyes bloodshot, a queen trying to look regal in chains. The judge entered. Court rose. The world held its breath. Prosecutors presented evidence with clinical force. The footage, the audio, the contradictions in Victoria's statements. Each piece tightened the vice around her narrative. Witnesses described her history of intimidation, letters dripping with malice, fines issued out of spite. Gloria, the HOA secretary, finally confessed to everything she'd seen, the rage, the threats, the obsession. And then came the testimony Ethan feared most. Call Lily Ward to the stand. Ethan's heart stopped for one beat, then restarted with a father's resolve. He kissed Lily's forehead and whispered, You just tell the truth. I'll be right here. Ruiz walked Lily to the stand, hand gently resting on her shoulder. The prosecutor knelt to meet Lily's eye level. Sweetheart, can you tell us what you saw that day? Lily's voice shook, but courage threaded through each word. The lady yelled. Mommy said sorry. Then the lady pushed her really hard, and Mommy fell. Her small hands trembled. A tear slipped down her cheek. Ruiz stepped forward to hand her a tissue without a word. And what did your daddy do? The prosecutor asked kindly. Lily looked at Ethan, then back. He tried to save Mommy. A single sentence that struck deeper than any forensic diagram. Victoria's lawyer tried to object, but the judge shut him down fast. Next, the audio played, Victoria's voice dripping with entitlement and fury, the shove captured in its awful immediacy, the scream of a child screaming for her mother. Courtroom air thickened with disgust. Victoria's composure shattered. She provoked me. She stood in my way. Mrs. Hale! The judge thundered. Silence! The verdict didn't take long. The jury foreman stood. We find the defendant, Victoria Hale, guilty of capital murder. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. Victoria collapsed back in her seat, disbelief twisting into horror. No! You can't do this to me. I run this community. The judge's voice remained unshaken. You ran a neighborhood. You do not run justice. Sentencing came next. Aggravating factors weighed heavily. Intentional force. Attempts to tamper with evidence, threatening a witness, exploiting community power. The court sentences you to death. Silence. Deafening. Absolute. Victoria screamed, wild, guttural, a thing stripped of power. Officers hauled her up and dragged her away. Her voice faded down the corridor. I'll get out. I'll make you pay. No one believed her anymore. Ethan didn't move. Relief didn't come as a wave. It trickled in, slow, steady, real. He lifted Lily into his arms, hugging her tight enough to make the world quiet. Noah stirred, eyes opening, confused but safe. Ruiz approached. "You did it," she whispered. "You kept your promise." "No," Ethan breathed, voice thick. "Justice did." They walked out of the courthouse through a gauntlet of camera flashes, reporters shouting questions, neighbors staring with tears, strangers feeling their hearts pull heavy with understanding. Ethan didn't respond to any of them. He focused on his children. Outside, sunlight hit them like a blessing. Lily asked, "Daddy, is Mommy happy now?" Ethan knelt down, kissing the top of her head. "I think she's proud," he said, voice cracking. "And now she can rest." Noah reached up to touch his cheek, offering a tiny smile, as if to remind him joy still existed. Ethan carried both kids, one on each arm, just like the day he lost Marissa. Only now, they weren't being held by a man crushed by tragedy. They were being held by the one who defeated it. It didn't bring back the life they lost. Nothing ever could, but justice had been served, publicly, undeniably. Victoria had taken a mother from her children. The law took away every measure of power she ever wielded. Ethan looked toward the sky as if Marissa could see their victory. "Rest now," he whispered. "We're okay." He walked forward, children clinging to him, leaving behind marble floors and cold justice halls. His steps were heavier than before, not with burden, but with responsibility to build the future Marissa wanted for their kids. No headlines, no whispers, no nightmares could take that away anymore. Her killer was gone. Their life would continue. And this time, tomorrow would not be darker. It would be brighter, even if only by a single ray of hope. Subscribe and don't miss our next story. Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next? Whisper.